Good day, this is my review of AEW Dark 06/30, July 30th. First, we have the backstage segment with Peter Avalon and Brandon Cutler talking about their upcoming match in the main event against the Young Bucks. This is interrupted by the Young Bucks saying, "Hey, we know you guys are trying to get on the same page. You have a match against us. We're going to teach you something about tag team wrestling because we've been wrestling together as a team since birth." So out first with our first opening contest on Dark, it's a match between Max Caster and Shawn Spears. Shawn Spears comes out to the ring. Before it starts, the ref checks Shawn Spears because last week on Dark, he won a match by a loaded glove. So the ref's obviously checking that. The commentary brings up the fact that Spears won his last match by a loaded glove. The match starts. Shawn Spears is very vicious. Just takes over, beats up Max Caster. Shawn actually wins without using the loaded glove. He hits a Death Valley driver, or as he's calling it, a C4. Post-match, his manager, Tully Blanchard, gives Shawn Spears a cartridge to put in his loaded glove, to put in the black glove, and then he hits Caster with it. Already saying that he's vicious and he wanted to do this and he can win without using it. The next matchup is Lance Archer versus Pineapple Pete. Pineapple Pete is making his way to the ring and gets attacked by Lance Archer brutally before getting into the ring. The start of the match, Pineapple Pete takes down Archer a bit, making Archer hit his manager, Jake Roberts. Pineapple Pete is has a bit of a heat start on him, gets Lance Archer out of the ring. Archer starts jaw-jacking with Joey Janela, who's in the crowd, setting up their match for next week. Pineapple Pete goes to make a suicide dive. Lance Archer catches him and chokeslams him on the ring apron. And then the whole match is just Lance Archer keeps beating him. Pineapple Pete keeps firing back, really putting over that Pineapple Pete has some babyface fire and be able to fight back like that. What happens halfway through is Archer just takes control, hits him with a blackout. If you don't know what the move is, it's basically you pick him up like a power bomb, but it's reversed. So instead of facing your back, you're facing forward. He picks him over and swings him that way and slams him down. Instead of going for the pin, he then grabs his head here like a claw and slams it against the mat. This goes on and on and on. After the match, Joey Janela comes in to run Lance Archer off with a freaking leaf blower like you would find at, say, Canadian Tire or the Home Depot. Lance Archer heads to the back. The very next match is Ricky Starks, the former NWA television champion Ricky Starks, versus Griff Garrison. Griff Garrison, I believe, is going by the Ivy League MVP. Ricky Starks looks like $1 million as he comes out. Looking like a star. Every time he would hit a move, he would pose, making himself look very vain. Basically, this match is all Ricky Starks. Griff Garrison doesn't really get any outfits. I should bring up that Griff Garrison tights had a very Jeopardy feel. Was kind of using that Jeopardy font. That's really all I can say about Griff Garrison. Shawn Spears wins with a jumping spear. This jumping spear looks great. Probably one of the better spears I've seen. Probably a bit better than Edge's. I know Edge had a really good spear, but it's more of a pretty maneuver instead of a vicious maneuver, if that makes any sense. If you look at Edge's or even Roman Reigns spears, he kind of just goes and looks very vicious in it. It was just kind of like a nice, pretty spear. It's hard to explain. Post-match, Shawn Spears plays some air guitar, looked like he's a low-rent Tanahashi. Thought it was good. Maybe get a little more into it. Maybe bigger air guitar instead of the little ones that he was doing. And he makes his way to commentary and goes to fist bump Excalibur. He goes now in fist bump Staz, making himself look a bit of a fool of himself. The very next match is Scorpio Sky versus Brandon Pierce. Brandon Pierce, of course, with the $1 million smile and gold boots. One thing I should know that Scorpio Sky has new music now, so he's no longer using his SCU stuff, and he has a different pyro. Also no longer using the SCU stuff, the match, the whole time of the match, to put over Sky as a single competitor. He looks good, wins with a jumping cutter version. Looks really great. It's really hard to explain, but eventually, Brandon Pierce is inside the ropes. Spears basically does a jumping cutter over the ropes. Looks good. After the match, we just see Scorpio Sky pose. The match did its job, put over Scorpio Sky as perhaps a singles competitor going forward. The next match is Killer Knight and Skylar Moore versus Brady Rose and Allie. The whole match is basically the feud with Brandy not liking Allie, although Allie is dating Dustin's tag team partner, who is her brother-in-law, her best friend. Allie comes out with a sign that says, with QT Marshall on it, saying, cheering him on, just because QT is currently out with COVID. He came and tore the match. The story of the match is that Allie and Brady don't get along. Brandy is working on her opponent. Allie makes the tag, does things like that. Eventually what happens is Brandy's getting worked over when they tag in again, and Allie's just out there saying, hey, can't you do anything? Can't you do anything? Brandy makes the tag, and they start losing. Allie wins the match, on all intents and purposes, hits the final cut, knocking out her opponent, and lets Brandy make the cover, winning the match. Post-match, you just see more of that, how they don't get along. I think you're brewing somewhere down the road for an Allie versus Brady Rose match, or Brandy Rose match. That seems how it's going. The very next match on Dark is the Butcher and Blade versus Fuego de la Sol and Lowrider. Before the match even starts, Fuego del Sol and Lowrider come as a team. They start pushing each other back and forth to try to psych themselves out. Before, obviously, the Butcher and the Blade come out. Butcher and Blade look like total stars in this match. The Blade actually looks a bit like Bob Holly before, during his hardcore phase when he was Hardcore Holly instead of the Sparky plug Bob Holly. And the Butcher actually kind of reminds me of an extra. If you ever seen the movie Gangs of New York, that's kind of what it looks like. Basically, this match is all Butcher and Blade. They really beat the out of this team. There's one spot in the match where they do a double team on Fuego del Sol. They go to do a double Beal, and Fuego gets a lot of hang time, and it's about 10 to 15 minutes of hang time. It's high. You could get that high on a 10-foot ladder. That's how far they Beal Fuego del Sol. So like I was saying, this match is all the Butcher and Blade. There's one point where the Blade actually does a back body drop onto Lowrider, and it looks bad. It looks like he hits right on the back of his head here somewhere, like the spot where your neck goes into your shoulders, and the commentators put it over huge. Essentially, this match breaks down where the Blade puts Fuego del Sol into a Texas Cloverleaf. Lowrider comes in to make the save and starts kicking Blade in the head, and he doesn't release the hold. So essentially what he does, he takes him and picks him up and power bombs him and puts him in a Boston Crab, but he's tapping out right before the end. This match did a really good job of making the Butcher and Blade look like killers. Butcher and Blade are a really good tag team, but the AEW tag team division is so loaded, would be a good word, or so stacked, they kind of get lost in the shuffle. With the tag team itself, you have the Young Bucks, Adam Page and Kenny Omega. It's a really deep tag team, so it really helps the Butcher and Blade get established as maybe not top contenders for your belt, but someone in there. It's a really deep tag team. And then, of course, it's the main event. It's the Young Bucks taking on Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon, the Librarian. The Librarian and Peter Avalon are continuing the story with them. They're basically just losers. They haven't won a match since they signed with AEW, and that's kind of the story. They're not getting along. The match mostly is the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks are the established team. They have a book coming out. They are the founders of the company. It's just all Young Bucks. You get standard tag team action. You get Peter Avalon and Brandon Cutler breaking down because Peter Avalon wants to take the advantage by cheating, but Brandon Cutler has a kid. He's a family man and doesn't want his kids thinking he's cheating and taking shortcuts, so that breaks down. It's all, Bucks, like I was saying, you get their basic Young Bucks double team, double team, double team, double team, double team. There's a spot where Cutler tags in, and since he's known the Young Bucks for so long, because they were friends now, they're the Young Bucks' best friend, he starts using that to get some advantage on him, and it starts looking good. The story of the matches, they're Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon are getting closer, getting closer. I was thinking it was going to come down to Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon actually beating the Young Bucks. I knew that wasn't going to happen, but if that was the storyline you were going to take, I could see it happening. The only team that they can beat is the best team in the company. Kind of like in sports, you can be the best team in the world and always be undefeated, 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 undefeated. There's one team that you just can't put away. The classic example was this one year where the Warriors had one of their best records. They lost to the Bucks, and the Bucks were one of the worst teams, but a significantly less team than the Warriors that year. This was before Giannis was Giannis, essentially. Essentially, the Young Bucks do win the match because there's a bit of a breakdown between Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon. But it just comes down to a really good match. The Young Bucks actually win with a double a knee to the face. They're calling it the VTE trigger. Post-match, the Young Bucks get into the ring and they're talking between Peter Avalon and Brandon Cutler, and they shake hands. So, good match. Overall, Show Dark was good. All the matches really got everyone over they needed to get over as killers, and it was a really good, really entertainable half hour of professional wrestling. I would give this show a pretty easy watch. It's an hour, so I understand if you don't want to watch Dark. It's not super necessary to enjoying AEW, but it's an hour, and if you got an hour to kill, there's other things you can watch that are far worse that are not really an hour. But if you want to watch it, best kind. If not, like I said, my name's Nathan Things at the start. I'm just trying this out. You can subscribe, hit the subscribe button and give this video a like if you liked it. Also, my Twitter is down below where I talk about all things wrestling. And I'd appreciate hitting the subscribe button. Have a great day, and I'll see you again.